Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I'm Yannis Natsis. I'm the Access to Medicines Policy Lead for the European Public Health Alliance, EPHA, and I want to welcome you to the fourth edition of EPHA's Access to Medicines Dialogues. Access to Medicines Dialogues is a brand new series of online events, online conversations, very straightforward conversations around access to medicines topics, around different access to medicines topics, bringing together key stakeholders. You can find the previous webinars on the EPHA YouTube channel. All of the sessions, including today's, are recorded. Today, it is a special day. Only a couple of hours ago, the European Commission released the long-awaited, much-awaited pharmaceutical strategy for the EU. And I think it is safe to say that we've come a long way in a short period of time. Personally, I do remember the time when in the Brussels lobbying world, very few of us as civil society advocates would dare to raise the issue of high prices of medicines, would highlight the need for affordability without being immediately cornered or labeled as anti-pharma, pharma-bashers or anti-innovation. And that was only 5-6 years ago in Brussels. Luckily, things have changed, things have evolved. Over the past few years, more and more member states, governments in Europe started sounding more and more like civil society. Governments and the European Commission started echoing a lot of the messages which were first expressed by civil society. A lot of these messages are today reflected in the pharmaceutical strategy just published by the European Commission. And this is why, in my view, the pharmaceutical strategy is overall a good starting point, a solid basis for the continuation of this conversation. And there is no better way to continue this conversation than by being joined virtually here today by these three key decision makers in Europe, starting with Marcel van Rij. Marcel van Rij is the Director for Pharmaceuticals and Medical Technologies with the Ministry of Health of the Netherlands. I've known Marcel for quite a few years now. I think he's one of the masterminds, one of the architects of the several agenda setting, very, very straightforward and game-changing, groundbreaking statements, high-level political statements that we've seen in Europe in recent years on access to medicines. The Netherlands has contributed to advancing this debate. Rui Ivo Santos, and also Marcel, I think is one of the few public servants, civil servants, who still has his job and he remains in this position. Ministers come and go, Marcel is always there. I think this is a privilege and a luxury in public administration across member states. Secondly, Rui Ivo Santos. Rui is undoubtedly one of the most influential regulators in Europe. His agency, Infarmed, the Portuguese medicines agency, is one of the most competitive regulatory authorities in the approvals system in Europe. And last but not least, Momir Radulovic, the executive director of the Slovenian Medicines Agency. And I'm very happy to have Momir and Rui here with us today because they were tasked with the extra work these months and leading up to 2021 of preparing their countries to take over the presidency of the European Union. Portugal takes over from Germany in January 2021 and Slovenia follows during the second half of the year. So we will hear from Momir and Rui about their plan. First of all, you should be able to see all of us, the speakers and myself on your screen at all times, depending on your Zoom webinar settings. And I do at this point want to apologize wholeheartedly for the fact that this is an all-male panel. It's a manel. Personally, I'm allergic to manels, and we have a long track record at EPHA, including the access to medicines, numerous access to medicines events we've organized throughout the years, where our panels are very much gender balanced. I tried today to have a representative of another member state. Unfortunately, she was not available to join us, so I do apologize for this. As always, please do engage on Twitter using hashtag A2M Dialogues. And of course, I want to start this conversation Marcel, today you read the pharma strategy that you had a quick look, I guess, at the pharmaceutical strategy of the European Commission, and I want to come also to Rui afterwards. Have member states, in your opinion, been sufficiently consulted by the European Commission leading up to the publication of the strategy today? Over to you, Marcel.
Well, thank you very much, Yannis, and thank you for a warm introduction from you. Yes, I think we have had a lot of interactions over the last couple of years. Recently, we shared that in another meeting with the pharma directors in the German presidency we had a few weeks ago. And I'm really happy to see, and I want to congratulate the European Commission with a pharma strategy that very much, in my opinion, as far as we have seen it now this afternoon, very much reflects all the discussions that we have had over the last couple of years and the points brought up by member states that were important. So in a general sense, yes, we were consultant. Yes, we have also, by various of us, still, I'm sorry, I'm going to put this on silent here. We have been also promoting to the Commission that we should do this together because the total pharmaceutical system, of course, in part is within the mandate of the Commission, but another part of the total system is within the mandate of the member states, and that works as a total ecosystem. And so we have to work together to get a right balance. And personally, I see that reflected in the current document. That to start with.
Rui, was there anything new in a positive or in a negative manner in the document that you saw?
Thank you, Yannis. I'm very pleased to be here as well, together with Marcel and Momir, and with all who are listening to us. Yes, I didn't have the time, of course, to read it in detail, the document, but as far as I could do, I also welcome very much the pharmaceutical strategy. We see as an integrated approach, identifying all the major issues. So I fully agree with Marcel, and I also want to congratulate the Commission, because I think we had an important level of interactions before the document was prepared, and so I see that the most important elements are there. We see perhaps some for the first time in so explicit way, like aspects that we are keen on in relation to affordability, for example, issues relating to pricing and so on. Also, of course, a clear focus on patients, and also, as Marcel mentioned, I think this is very important for the implementation that we will have to carry on afterwards, is this balance, this collaboration with the member states. I think this is reflected. There's a number of ideas there. We need to go through them. But so overall, I would see as a very good basis, and I'm pleased to see the reflection of the previous discussion that we had. So welcome it for our presidency as well.
And Momir, your 2 cents, let's say, some preliminary thoughts on the document, and then we'll continue.
Dear Yannis, thank you for the invitation, and good afternoon to everyone listening online, and to Rui and Marcel. I see the strategy as an important milestone that we've been waiting for quite a long time, and it's crucial for the implementation of the EU pharmaceutical policy that recognizes and addresses pertinent issues of affordability, accessibility, and availability, the issues of shortages, but at the same time looks also to the competitiveness and innovation of the European pharmaceutical industry. So I'm really glad that we have the document, and today I think an important milestone was achieved.
Marcel, I want to hear from you, and I want to make it also for our viewers understandable. What comes next? I mean, we have a page, we have a document which is pretty long, 24 pages, a lot of actions listed, a lot of topics, and we're already in late 2020. Can you please give us a bit of an idea what you think will happen in the next months, and so that we understand concretely what comes next?
Well, that's a very specific question. What comes in the next months? But maybe to share a few notes that were also mentioned by the colleagues. I think one important element of this strategy is that it is indeed patient-centered. It is from the public health view. So the core objective of DG Santé is very much visible in the document, and I'm very happy with that. I think, as Monier also stated, it's a very well balanced text, because it is patient-centered, but it's also recognizing the importance of innovation and the importance in how to stimulate that climate, not only for the innovative industry, but also for the generic industry and the competitiveness of the market. So all the elements there are in the document, and that's, I think, very important. I see a willingness to act in the document, and that's, I think, is a very important keystone of the strategy. And of course, it's a very broad view. There's a high level of ambition in the document, almost too much to embrace in 4 years in the next period to come. But on the other hand, we have emphasized that it was necessary to have a high ambition there. So, but that again, that brings, of course, also the obligation to make it very concrete in the sense that it needs an action agenda, as we have put forward already a couple of times. We have put that forward also with a number of member states recently to the Commission. So it's very important that together with the Commission, that we look at a clear clear milestones for the next 2 years, for example, what to do with the clear priorities, what to do first, what to do second, and etc. Because that's important, I think, that we also pick the right order in that sense, because there is also some low-hanging fruit, so here and there in the system, and if we take it very big and very philosophical, then we can discuss for 4 years more and then forget to take the actions that we can do now in certain elements. So that's something I think for the next couple of months will be important to discuss that together with the Commission and the member states, and not to forget some elements that maybe are a little bit not so in the spotlight, like from our point of perspective, and we have put a document forward with supported by 50 member states with the top 5 priority in there, which also includes looking at the ATMP regulation, because there's a lot of innovation coming to us, which is nice, which is good. But we also see that the current situation is not fit for the future, and we cannot allow ourselves to wait for another couple of years to look at that situation. So yes, I think for the next months we have to see what comes first and what comes next to build a very concise action agenda there.
Rui, I want to come to you. As Marcel, I think Marcel made it clear that there are a lot of topics, is a lengthy to-do list. It's a useful inventory for action. What would you like to see prioritized? And perhaps this way you could also tell us a bit what your thoughts are, what your plans are for the first half of 2021 when Portugal takes over the helm of the EU.
Yanis, I agree with Marcel. So, and then, as I said, but it's very important that we have a document like that. So, where we have a list of the strategic issues that we want to address over the year. So, at least for the coming 4 years. But of course, we have to be very careful that to to avoid to keep this broad discussion without concretizing, without making things happen. So I think we have to now ensure that there is a good discussion. I think there's been a lot of discussions also among the member states, especially with preparing these documents that Marcel has mentioned, in trying to identify priorities, so that by discussing together with the Commission, we identify the priorities in stemming from the strategy, so that we can address them in a meaningful order. There are some elements in the document. We can see that in some cases the Commission itself is identifying some dates where it wants to put forward legislative proposals, but nevertheless, I think it's very important that we do that. This is something that we would like to contribute in our presidency. In the priorities, and this will be presented by my minister soon in terms of the program, I think in the coming days. But there is one issue, which is access to medicines, taking this in a broad sense, that we want to take on board, and this will also be dealt with by means of a conference that probably can be a good tool to do this prioritization and moving into the concrete aspects. There is one element that I think it's very close to all of us that are in this panel, and also to the German presidency, which is the supply capacity of the EU, so that we have medicines available. And I think this is something that we need to address. Of course, we know that there are still some documents to be prepared. There is a study on the shortages. Momira has mentioned this is very clearly, but I think we, by having patients in the center of these proposals, which we really support fully, this aspect that came to the light in very, very openly during the pandemics or the early phases of the pandemic situation, that is this, as I would call the basic medicine, basic in the sense of essential to the health system. I think this is something that we need to address, and we would like to put this as a priority. I think we had done work already before. We've done it during the German presidency. I think Momira has mentioned it many times, so I think we can work on this. It's not only the aspects that we have identified in relation to the supply chain and to enforce capacity in Europe, but I think we need also to look into the regulatory system. There is one of the chapters is focusing on the flexibility, but I think when it comes to the regulatory system, we need to see how we can ensure that these medicines are not lacking in a system so developed as the one we have in the EU.
Rui, you mentioned the regulatory dimension. Well, you touched upon a lot of different topics, but on the regulatory dimension, reading a bit today, the pharma strategy, it seems that we're looking a lot at making the approval system more efficient. But should we interpret it as making it also faster? And if that's the direction we're heading in, how compatible is that with the need for more robust evidence in order to tackle or perhaps even reduce the uncertainty at the time of approval? The uncertainty at the time of approval, which trickles down and makes the life of the subsequent links in the chain more difficult in the healthcare system, the work of HTA agencies, the payers or the buyers, et cetera, in their decision-making process. I would like to have your thoughts on that. And you touched about shortages, and I will come to Momir as well afterwards on the issue of shortages specifically.
Yanis, I mean, I don't think necessarily we need to focus too much on making the system faster, because I think we have already the right tools. Perhaps we have to identify situations where we need to act with some specificity. I mean, we are all facing now the current situation with approving either treatments or vaccines for this situation, but we have the tools. So eventually, for this kind of circumstances, maybe we need to learn from from the current situation and to see whether there is any need. But I don't think this would be the focus on making, because the system is able to respond timely. So I would more look into, I agree also with Marcel in relation to ATMPs. So here, of course, it's not only the approval aspect, it's also how they are dealt with when they come to the health system. How do we assess them in terms of incorporation into the system, because they are a different product. So I would focus more on looking to concrete aspects that need to be dealt with. For me, what I would call probably a list of essential medicines that we cannot risk to lack in our system, particularly even when we have new products, because when we see many of these advanced therapies products, in many times they require therapies to have other older products to be administered together. So this would be my line, to identify in a more concrete way these aspects.
Thank you, Rui. Momir, over to you. We hear a lot about shortages. It is an issue which is also very close to the heart of a lot of the EPHA members, a lot of my members. What would you, I guess that is a priority as well, the question of availability and tackling the issue of medicine shortages. What are your plans also during your presidency?
Well, there is the issue of shortages more generally. So I think that there is a great need to be sufficient and to have effective mechanisms in place that will reinforce the obligation of the continuous supply. And as regards early notification of withdrawals, possibly also different sanctions in case of non-compliance. Issues that Slovenia specifically considers as a priority are definitely not new, and we will go in this direction of drug shortages, as those are specific to small markets, and we really hope that they can be sufficiently addressed with the measures of the strategy. For example, it is really difficult to accept that a member state has difficulties with the accessibility on the centrally authorized medicinal product in a single EU market. Here, the EU should look for regulatory solutions that will address the obligations of the market authorization holder, as well as eliminate the administrative obstacles that can additionally hinder availability.
Thank you, Momir. Very clear. Marcel, on this specific topic, I remember the words of the former Dutch Iron Lady, Edith Schippers, your former minister. She put the issue of availability very much square on the agenda, I would say. Do you think that the question of availability, I see it also very, very present, very dominant in the pharma strategy. What do you think will come next on that?
Well, I think, as I understand also from Monir, it's a multi-headed issue. You know, if that, I don't know if that's the right English, but you understand what I mean. So we have several root causes probably causing the issues, and the fact that I completely agree, and that was put on the agenda also in the last year, that if we have a centralized authorized medicine, it's almost ridiculous to accept that some of these products are only available in a couple of member states of the European Union. So we have to look in that what the mechanisms are to stimulate that. On the other hand, we have issues on the supply chain and the continuous supply, as Monir also pointed out. That's more difficult, because there we are part of a more global production and manufacturing chain. So we have to be very careful to know what works in the system and what doesn't before you can do the right actions. So I very much applaud the study of the Commission on that. We really have to do that on an international level for that kind of issues, to know we're doing the right things. And on the other hand, I think sometimes to keep, for instance, old products on the market, and I think that's also something that that I heard in previous talks from Rui as an interesting point, that we have also to look at regulatory mechanisms if you can still be attractive on the European level for that kind of products, because they are essential to some patients, for instance. So we have a mix of things there, and we have to look at what are in the regulatory aspects, but also in the total incentive system, what works and what doesn't work, and not. At least we have to be careful that we are not building too much emphasis on the end of the chain with a lot of monitoring and a lot of lists and things like that, because that takes a lot of energy. And you could ask yourself, is that really a solution? And we have to dig deeper into the root of this all.
Marcel, you mentioned some low-hanging fruit before. What do you mean by that? Which are the low-hanging fruit in your opinion?
Well, just a fruit, and I will take two examples. We have seen, of course, that in the evaluation of the orphan regulation, that there's many things that are stimulating and functions well, but we also see some very clear issues where it goes wrong. And there are fixes for that, we think, to do that without throwing the positive elements of the system out of it. That's one example. But on the other side, I think there's low-hanging fruit, and I'm very happy to see that in the text of the Commission on the regulatory side, with how to deal with variations or with all kinds of administrative procedures where we have low-hanging fruit that can easily be simplified as a part of the industry side. And I think on a lot of aspects in the system, there are this kind of elements that we could fix.
Rui, I think so far from all three of you, I hear a lot on the question of the supply chain, the disruptions we experienced, especially during spring with COVID-19, the diversification. But I want to hear a bit more concretely, because here, to me, it sounds as if there's an overlap between health policy and industrial policy. So I want to dig a bit deeper into that and see what you would like to see. Is it just a question of building manufacturing sites in Europe, or is it something more than that?
I think there must be a combination of, and in this respect, the strategy is balanced, because it identifies different levels of intervention, both legislative and non-legislative, and more focus on the regulatory system, more focus on the sector itself. So I think this has to be a combination, because we have, for example, discussed that for example, marketing authorization holders would have more than one API manufacturer or things like that, or to make this the supply chain also more transparent. So it has to be a combination. So the issue of incentives, that is also something that we see quite emphasized in the document, can be a good way to address also this issue, not only to new innovative products, but also to other products. So I think there has to be a balance, but I'm very much keen on considering that it's important that, and I think this is very positive in the document, that we are putting the regulatory system as a way to support the strategy, and I think this has to be the right way. Of course, we need then to be concrete to avoid that this is not advancing. But for me, this is very positive. So we have to keep the two, and from what we have seen, there are many instruments that that also are coming at light. I mean, not only the pharma strategy, not only other measures that the Commission has presented on other settings, the pharma package, but also of initiatives that are also mentioned in the strategy that can be combined. But then the regulatory is the way to make sure that these actions are framed, are let's say able to function in view of what is the end result we want. That is at the end, of course, to have a better system in Europe.
There is a question also from our viewers online on specifically on orphan drugs. We see that the pharma strategy does include explicit references to a review of the legislation. Do you fear pushback from the industry, from the pharmaceutical companies? Is that something that you think will slow the process down or not? Is that a concern? I don't know who wants to take this question. Marcel, perhaps you?
Well, of course, when a strategy as this is published, all parties will look at the elements that are important for them, and that's for the member states, that's for payers, that's for patients, not to forget, but also from industry parties. And I think that some elements will be welcomed by the industry, and some elements maybe will lead to discussion, and so that could be here the case also. But on the other hand, and that I already said that, I think in the document there is attention to both the innovative industry and also the competitive of the market, and that should be a balance, because we need both to have a healthy system. We do need to have innovative industry in Europe, and we do need to have a competitive market to have the balance in the system. So it's not one way or the other. And if you allow me to remind you, Yanis, the Kausum conclusions of the Dutch presidency, they had in their wording balance, rebalance the system. So it's not for or against industry or whatever, but we have to look at a balance in the system, and I think that's the right way to go forward.
Thank you, Momir. I don't want to continue without giving you the opportunity to elaborate a bit on what your plans are. Of course, the presidency comes the second half of next year, but I would greatly appreciate it if you could share with us a few preliminary thoughts on what your intentions are.
Well, Slovenia is definitely coming in the second part of the next year. Then COVID-19 has forced us to look into the supply of critical medicines in the EU. But beyond this crisis, we should reflect on the essential list of medicines that should be available in all EU countries, and for which we should look for new solutions to make them available and also to meet the unmet medical needs. So clearly this will be one of our main topics, because we have the unique opportunity to develop a new model and pilot it. For example, we could start by finding the EU model that will result in the availability of antibiotics. That means from the research and development, clinical trials to manufacturing and procurement. For example, already before this crisis, I proposed in one of the pharmaceutical committee meetings to reflect on the potential usage of joint procurement agreement for antibiotics. And similarly, we should also look for the solutions to shortages of off-patent medicines, especially for generic cancer medicines. So not just antibiotics and old generic medicines, generic cancer medicines, we should reflect on different approaches to find innovative solutions in case of other non-commercially interesting medicines. And Slovenian presidency will focus on that. So we will try to reach a political consensus, and we'll try to put on table some new EU model that we would like to push further.
Thank you, Maury. That's interesting, and we look forward to working together on these issues. I want to ask you, looking back, Marcel mentioned the June 2016 Council conclusions. They're not so much in the distant past, but my question and what I'm concerned is that I don't see the right forum. What is the right forum for proper coordination amongst member states? I want to ask you, therefore, looking ahead, in your opinion, how are you going to get your house in order? How are you going to make sure that you as member states, you work together, you include or not the European Commission? What is the right forum? Is it the intergovernmental, the regional intergovernmental initiatives? Is it the Pharmaceutical Committee? What are your thoughts on that? Rui, you want to go first?
Yes, Yanis. I mean, I think the fact that we have the pharmaceutical strategy is a good basis to be able to get into an adequate forum for that discussion. I recognize, as Marcel mentioned, that the conclusions of the Council in 2016 were a very important element in this process. I'm not sure if we will have only one place, but for the member states, we have tried to use for example, the pharma directors group. Of course, we have the pharmaceutical committee with the commission. We have also the council. I agree that for the strategy we need to have a forum. So we have to find the right, because the way to make it evolve, as I said in the beginning, is to have a mechanism of aligning the member states and the commission. So we have to find I don't have a straightforward answer in terms of the form, but we have many contexts that have evolved. So I think we can find the right, and I fully support that we need to have such a forum, and also to find, and the document also mentioned that, to have a way then to discuss, to involve the stakeholders. Of course, this is also important to advance. So yes.
Marcel, what do you think? What is I know that you've been struggling to identify what is the best format, the best forum to advance this discussion and to get concrete commitments and actions. I think now there is the pharma strategy. This is a roadmap that everyone can agree to, I guess, and I hope. But in terms of implementation and rolling it out, which is the right forum in your view?
Yeah, that's a very good question, which have been puzzling me also the last couple of years, because as I started already in the beginning of this session, that we have this division of competences which should be respected also from the side of the Netherlands, of course, and at the same time, we need to have a more in-depth European cooperation on the total system. So, of course, there's the Pharmaceutical Committee of the Commission, which is for the Commission a very important forum to discuss with the member states. But of course, I think there's more needed. And on the other side of the regulators, I don't want to miss that. We have of course the network of the heads of medicine agencies, where on the regulatory side there's a strategic level of collaboration. But you have to bring those worlds together, because the part that is within the scope of the member states is part of the total ecosystem. And that's also why the idea of the pharma directors meeting was started, because we felt that we had the need on a really policy strategic level to discuss with each other in Europe the right issues, the right directions. And I very much applaud all the colleagues that have organized directors meeting in the past couple of years, because it really helped to know each other, to have the opportunity to have in-depth discussions on that. So I think a combination of that fora, I don't see at this point in time one perfectly situation in front of me. We have to bring those worlds together. And in that sense, I agree with what the Commission says. We have to break the silos. But also we have to be aware that we have to be on a strategic level in our discussions before we go into all kinds of technical details of proposals.
Thank you very much for the openness. I want to ask you, of course, all three member states, Slovenia, the Netherlands, and Portugal, you are involved in different regional formats of collaboration. Momir, do you think the Valletta Group, for instance, the Valletta Declaration Group of countries, is it a dead initiative? And I think the question goes to you and to Rui, and the same obviously applies to Marcel for Beneluxa. We haven't heard much over the past few months. If you could explain to us what is the state of play and whether these initiatives still have a future or are they dead in the water?
Well, let me give you feedback on the La Valletta. So regional cooperation is the result of the needs member states have. It shows symptoms and points to the sustainability of the systems and the issue that is becoming an increasing concern due to expensive, innovative medicines. And such cooperation is born out of our shared needs to ensure our patient access to highly expensive, innovative medicines in the future. But I also believe that we need to reflect also on mechanisms at the EU level. So, for example, in case of the rare diseases with only few patients through the whole European Union, in any case, the underlying issue is the transparency that is essential.
I like that you referred to the issue of transparency. There are a lot of questions, I must tell you, also on the question of the Commission strategy refers to the transparency in R&D costs or the transparency when it comes to the role of public funding. But I'll come to that afterwards. Rui, if you could answer what's going on with the Valletta Group. I know that you've been a key player in keeping this moving. Where are we today?
Yes, I mean, all the initiatives have suffered from the current situation. Although we had meetings in the meantime, but it's different. Also our capacity to put this as a priority. As I said before, I also think because the strategy has a number of elements which would benefit from using this regional cooperation. So, and when you asked about the question of the forum, I think, as I said, there is no one clearly that we can identify. So probably we should use what exists to contribute to this strategy. So in Valletta, I think that it has been playing a role, as Momir said, is very much focused on the sustainability aspects, also on the transparency aspects. These are also elements that are at least mentioned in the strategy. So being optimistic, I would see as also a possibility for the Valletta to continue and also be a good setting for these discussions. But we have been trying and also meeting and exchanging information. So this it's not an exercise that has stopped. No.
That's good to hear, and it's encouraging for sure. You know that we, especially civil society as a whole, we've been very, very supportive, staunch fans of these regional initiatives of collaboration. Marcel, could you give us a bit of an update? Is Beneluxa a victim of COVID-19, or is it still around?
Well, a victim, I would not call that, but yes, for sure, I must be honest on that the COVID-19 has taken a lot of time, also from the people in the agencies and in the ministries, including myself. we have done a lot of other things that I wouldn't think I would have done at the beginning of this year. So it has been a little bit lower in activity for sure. But at the same time, I see that the willingness in the Benelux partners to exchange information, to work together on projects is still there. And I'm happy to see that there are still cases where we are working very operational together. Yes, I think we have been a little at low level of activity since I think March of this year or something. But we're trying to pick up again, and so I would not call it a victim, but just a point of reality of our precious time.
And on this, I think both for the Valletta Group, but also for Beneluxa, the question of transparency in pharmaceutical systems overall has been high on the agenda. I remember also statements coming out of Beneluxa supporting transparency. My feeling is that during the COVID-19 pandemic, we are moving backwards when it comes to the question of overall transparency. I think we're moving back to the dark ages. I hope that this is just because of the circumstances caused by the pandemic. But I do want to get your views on the overall question of transparency in pharma. Transparency also when it comes to the question of the public support. We see, and we've seen since March, governments throwing money and all sorts of perks and benefits to the industry in order to work together. But there are some questions to be asked about that. But I don't want to have the discussion exclusively on COVID-19, not at all. It's more of a generic question of what are your thoughts and what are the concrete actions you would envisage in promoting transparency in the pharma systems in general. Marcel, you want to?
Well, when I look in the pharma strategy, there are a couple of elements on transparency. For instance, the transparency of R&D costs, which is very important to have the right discussion with stakeholders and industry. Transparency on trials and etc., which we also supported from Beneluxa. But of course, in this time of a pandemic, you need to collaborate. You need to collaborate as member states. You need to collaborate with industry. We need to collaborate with industry in a normal system. But as I said, in a balance. So the COVID-19 situation is a very specific situation, I would say, which is not illustrative for the general picture. Of course, we learn from this period in time a lot, like things that can be done also in a different way. So we have to take the lessons learned and move on, but we also have to keep our a total picture of the system where we work in.
Thank you. I do appreciate the honesty. I think you are all very, very frank tonight during this conversation. Rui, one of the proposals in the pharma strategy, but also we heard it already in October from Ursula von der Leyen, is this establishment of this European BARDA, this HERA, if I'm not mistaken, HERA agency. And there again is the question of the public going into the biomedical R&D. And you, from the regulator's perspective, what would you like to see from this European BARDA, let's say? Your thoughts on that?
Yanis, perhaps is not the issue that I can comment in more detail. I think you are referring to two initiatives, because I think there are two initiatives, as far as I know, in this package. So it's the one directed to the research support, and also on the emergency aspects. What I would refer is this situation has highlighted a number of issues that we should look at. As I agree with Marcel, we should have to look at it from a specific perspective, but then also to see how, in a more social way, we should also discuss them. Myself, in early March or April, when suddenly our governments were asking us to do things that we were not expected to do, we were trying to find solutions, and we were a little bit alone. So it's good that in specific circumstances we know exactly what we would like to have at European level or in terms of cooperation. So so these are aspects that, if this would lead to the creation of this kind of structures that are a result of needs that are clear in view of the future, then I think it would be positive. But I also think that we have to make this distinction. One is how we were able to respond, and we are now responding. The regulators in the assessment, the policy makers or the other departments in other settings, and how we can learn from this to then make this more meaningful in terms of the system that we want to have in the future. And I think we have to do that in the context of the agenda that we have in front of us.
Marcel, and afterwards I'll go to Momir. I have a question specifically on shortages for him. Marcel, do you have any thoughts on this EU BARDA? Because I know that you worked on that and on the role of the public support also on the national level. Is there something that you would like to see from this new EU agency?
Well, I think it's an interesting idea to look at the possibilities, what this could bring for Europe as a whole. And of course, in the total set of proposals that the Commission's put forward to the member states, we have to look very carefully in what are the proposals, what are the consequences, what does it bring us for the future. So at the current moment, I've not very detailed opinion yet. We're still looking at that proposal, but of course, in principle, it's a positive sign, I would say.
Thank you. And Momir, you referred, I'm going back a bit to the issue of shortages. This is an issue that is getting a lot of attention also from our viewers online. You referred to some specific changes you would like to see. And there is a question whether you would also favor the obligation for some sort of a European security for stockpiling, and to have this obligation for companies to stockpile. So would that be something that you would also favor to tackle the issue of medicine shortages?
Well, in my opinion, the crucial target is that we build more resilient infrastructure, in particular in the health sector, and to produce critical goods in Europe to reduce over-dependency on third countries. I think this is crucial, and this is in line with the key recommendations of the recovery roadmap. The presidency will definitely encourage the work of the establishment of, for instance, joint laboratories through the either through GRC or through some other agency. As you already mentioned, we see a lot of increasing mandates of ECDC, EMA, and now HERA, and we all want to make this solution happen. So that, and one of the possible solutions is to have a EU stockpile for medicines that we have in shortage.
Thank you, Momir. We have a few minutes left. I have a question, a very general one. The pharma strategy today reminded us of the access to medicines debate before COVID-19. Of course, there are elements, and of course, the strategy reflects and takes a stock of what has happened in the past few months. But I want to ask you, how do you think that the debate, the access to medicines debate, is reshaped, if it is reshaped, in Europe in light of COVID-19? especially when it comes to the dynamic between your governments and pharmaceutical companies. And feel free to add any other topics that we haven't covered during the past hour. Marcel, you want to go first?
Well, I think as I said before, I think we should be aware in general not to forget the situation before COVID. So we have to still look at the system as a whole, and try not to be too narrow in the world we are living in at this point in time. In our view, so that's a warning. But at the same time, as I said before, we have to learn from this situation, and there have been also things shown to us in this year that brought us maybe some insights in supply chains, in whatever you can imagine, that we have to take on board. Of course, we do that, but the basic element of this all, and I'm going to repeat myself, I'm afraid, is that we have to still be very concise about a balanced system where we have all stakeholders play their share, but for our citizens, we have access to good quality, available and affordable medicines. That's the central goal. That hasn't changed by COVID. Maybe that some elements that have been that get more attention than before COVID, but the essential of this all has not, in my opinion, my personal opinion, has not changed.
I see Rui nodding over. Rui, over to you.
Yes, Yanis, as you said, in terms of whether we are coming back, I mean, the basic elements, the main objectives are of course the same, and I think we all share the wish that we want to have medicines that are of quality, of safety, of efficacy, that are available to all patients. And we mentioned at the beginning of our discussion the fact that the strategy makes emphasis on patient needs. I think this is quite important. This we should not forget. And by having this in mind, we bring all the different elements. We bring, of course, the need for new products, innovative products, the orphan products, but we also the need for the older products that are essential to the system, the need for the generics and biosimilars, and of course the need to have a capacity in Europe to also to respond. In my view, so having the strategy is a very good list of the important elements, and I think the document is moved in a concrete way of being presented, and then if we link that with the lessons that we've learned from also the COVID, because I think this is always important. Crises always have this important aspect of highlighting aspects that need change. So I think we can then bring this into the solutions that we have to bring forward. Again, I would like to emphasize, we know that there are many settings to have this discussion, but I think we should not lose the importance to identify clearly the needs and be concrete and have solutions. So if we do that, I think we will be able to be successful. And this is something that we hope we can, although we will have the COVID situation as something that we have to deal with during the presidency, but that we can really contribute to helping in moving these solutions forward.
So Rui, I want some scoops here. So you said that there will be a conference organized during your presidency.
Yes.
Will you organize the directors of pharma meeting as well? Will there be council conclusions on pharma or access to medicines?
We would like to. We would like to be able to do that. Of course, it depends on on all the colleagues. So it depends also on Marcel, on Momir, and on all the others. But I think it's if we agree that we want to deliver in terms of solutions, and again for all the players, then I think this kind of initiatives may be helpful in this respect. So this would be our intention, to have a discussion, to focus, to involve the different parties, and then, if possible, to have some conclusion in the council. Yes, and the pharma directives. Yes, we because to do that we need to have the different settings to meet as well. So the heads of agencies on one side, because there are many aspects that need to. Of course, the EMA we haven't mentioned many times in the discussion, the EMA, but of course it's very important to be involved, and then of course the pharma directives. So I hope we can succeed, depending on what else we have to do in terms of the pandemic.
So a packed agenda. I'm guessing there will also be an informal EPSCO, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good luck. Bon courage with all of this. And Momir,
Yes.
over to you for some concluding remarks.
Well, in my view, it is important to keep the political debates related to access, availability, and affordability high on the political agenda. The health of population is the top priority, as we see during this crisis. Member states and the European Commission need to work closely together on the implementation of solutions. So we are of the strategy. We have communication and alignment at this stage, but to make it happen, we need to drive accountability for each stakeholder. We need to create focus, and as with each strategy, it needs to be action-orientated with the track progress. So just to conclude, so small member states cannot resolve some problems, for instance, on accessibility that are linked to the legislation or due to prices. So definitely European Commission needs to propose or change some things on the EU level. So we are really looking forward to make this strategy happen. And I think many of stakeholders online, which will be part of this implementation, are already aware of it, and I'm really looking forward to work with them.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Marcel Van Rij. Thank you, Momir Radulovic. Thank you, Rui Dos Santos. Thank you for your time and for sharing your thoughts with us and our viewers very openly. I appreciate this honesty. I look forward to working together to make sure that we advance a lot of these mutual goals that we have. Civil society is on your side. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to tune in on December 8th. We will have our 5th meeting. You see the slide. We will hear from Marie-Paul Kenny, the Director of Research of INSERM, and Michel Goldman, and former IMI Executive Director, on how should a European BARDA look like. We are starting the brainstorming process early on in the process, in the way. I know that the BARDA for Europe is far away from us at this stage, but we want to get the discussion going. Thank you very much for joining tonight, and you will be able to watch this discussion online on the EPHA YouTube channel. Have a nice evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.